Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Chit Chat Live. My name is Shannon Combs Bennett. I'm the creative director for the In-Depth Genealogist, and tonight we will be talking about the week of February 22nd's episode of Finding Your Roots. It came out on Tuesday, so that would have been the 23rd. Let's see here. They had on the show Neil Patrick Harris, Gloria Steinem, and Sandra Cisneros. So I hope you all are ready for the show. Joining me this evening, unfortunately, Terry and Jen are not able to join me, so it's just me and our two special guests this evening, Sherry Hudson-Patsy from the Carolina Girl blog, and Melissa Barker, certified archivist and blogger. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Thanks.
Hello.
You get just me tonight. I'm so sorry.
Just you is good enough.
That's right. Terry and Jen had family obligations, but they said if they could join in time, they would pop in. So we may still be able to see them tonight. We'll see if they actually get around to leaving their family for a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen. So it was a pretty interesting episode of Finding Your Roots this week.
Yes. It was.
It was. There were some sensational things. You know, everybody wants to find a witch. Don't they?
The magic.
The magic. He loved the magic, didn't he? And then we had ancestors baking papers and pretending to be other people.
So let's see here. Why don't we start with, since we brought up the witch trial, let's start with Neil first, because he's the easy one, right?
Yeah.
The one with a long paper trail that, of course, ended in Charlemagne.
Of course.
We love those gateway ancestors.
Of course. Yeah, I would love them if I could find them.
Yeah, me too. So not happening.
No.
Nope. Not for me either.
So were you guys, I thought it was interesting that they went back to Germany and to a actual this is your warning, spoiler alerts if you haven't actually seen the episode yet. So he had a ancestress who was a witch who was burned at the stake, or at least according to the records, she was accused of being a witch. What I thought was interesting was the trial went on for 2 years.
Yes, yes. Paperwork.
Wasn't that amazing? Yeah, paperwork.
Yes.
And it looked like there was a transcript of it published in a book.
Yeah, it said 20 pages or something like that. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, the documentation. And at that time, and of course, I was sitting next to my husband on the couch. And if Terry was on the show, she would say, "Do you know everything?" Because my husband and I took an elective course in college, and it was what was the name of it? I can't remember the name of it. It was something really cool, but it was essentially on the witchcraft scares across Europe and in America and all that kind of stuff. Why they rose, what was thought about it, what was the political. And so I looked at him and I'm like, "Ooh, should we go get the textbooks?" We still have them in the basement. But yeah, so they said it was, for those of you who didn't see the show, it sounded like the animals had contracted hoof and mouth disease.
Yes.
And let's see here, Dr. Gates was he speculating or was he reading that it sounded like she was trying to stop the spread of the disease by burning the animals? Or
I think he may have been speculating, but it would make sense.
It would. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's extremely contagious.
Right. So then the poor woman is trying to help herself and everybody else, and they accuse her of being a witch. And then she gets burned, which is...
Gosh. It was kind of crazy at that time period in Europe. I mean, when my mother was stationed in Germany, we would, go into some of the bigger towns and they would have some historical marker sign type things and talk about the hundreds of people in the city squares and stuff. So yeah, there was definitely burning craziness around there.
Yes.
It wasn't just in Salem, huh?
No.
It wasn't just in Salem. No, long before.
I enjoyed Neil Patrick Harris's enthusiasm for finding a witch.
I did too.
And I thought about myself. I thought, I really enjoy finding those ancestors that were bad, or that were seemingly bad, or because it just adds so much more to them. Because I don't know about you all, but I have ancestors what I call the boring ancestors, because they just didn't do anything. When you find the witch or the one that got in trouble with the law, or good, here we go.
Well, see, then he had the other one. He had the one that did the lawsuit, the one that came on the Neptune a couple of years before the Mayflower, and then he escaped that battle and went to live with, I think her name was Jordan or something like that.
That was the last name, yep.
Yes.
And then there was the court case because the preacher said, no, she was supposed to be my wife, and then they had the whole lawsuit about that. It was the first one in the nation. So, he had a lot of good, as he was saying, material to maybe make a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Some stories.
I was like, ooh, I should go to the Library of Virginia and see if I can find that.
Look that up. Yeah.
Let's go look this up. This is pretty cool. But the Indian Massacre of 1623 was really devastating for the colony, and it shaped a lot of the early laws and the reason why things were done in certain ways in Virginia after that. So that was to have an ancestor who was here and survived it, and they go about getting involved in another lawsuit. Of course, when Dr. Gates was talking about how it was a turbulent voyage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My husband's like, was he on the sea venture? Because that's my husband's ancestor. Sorry, honey, not yours.
Wrong one.
But speaking of the bad ancestors, when you were talking, it reminded me that Gloria mentioned to Dr. Gates in her section, she's like, my mother went to that place in D.C. where you do all the research, but she was always looking for the bad people.
Right.
That's right.
Somehow she didn't realize that her own husband had faked his name on his military records.
Oh no, that's Sandra.
Was that the wrong one?
Yeah, Gloria Steinem her mother was the one.
I thought it was it was the guy in the Mexican War. Did he not? Wasn't he the one that faked his name on the military record?
That was Sandra's father, Sandra Cisneros' father.
Oh, that's right. And I'm switching the two. Yeah, I'm switching the.
Oh, no.
I've got the right story.
Sometimes the way the show
crosses
back and forth, I have to make 3 separate pieces of paper.
And I do.
And then write on each one.
And I still messed it up. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sometimes
I'm like, I know you're trying to tell a story, but I'm really confused.
Wasn't it cute?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, wasn't it cute how Neil Patrick Harris took a picture of his book to put on Twitter?
Yes.
Oh, those youngins.
I'm telling you.
I think he's about my age, but should I say us youngins? That's about right, because if he got his now I'm going to think about that, because my mother was in residency when Doogie Howser was on air.
Oh.
So she would watch it and giggle.
Yeah.
Because it was, TV that made her giggle during residency. Very few things do back then when you were an actual resident doctor, And so I would watch it, and they said that he got his first that role at 16, so he's probably just a couple years older than me. So
yeah,
I have such a big crush on him. Sorry. Crush on Doogie Howser. That's so good. Moving on. So Sandra Cisneros, I will admit, and this is very bad of me, I didn't know who she was.
I didn't either.
Guess I should go read her book. But I found it interesting the way they traced her family as migrant workers with the help of the census records, so they could see how they left Mexico and as the kids were born across the western United States and then end up in Chicago in 1940.
Yes. because she had said, well, I just thought they just kind of plopped there somehow. She didn't know how they got there, you know? So that was just that visual of them going across the United States.
I think it leads to the fact that maps and timelines are a genealogist's friend.
Absolutely.
Yes, very much so.
I have several ancestors who I'm convinced aliens just, landed fully formed in a place. So one day maybe I will find something that will lead me to be able to track them like that.
Right,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we've alluded to it several times, but yes, her father faked his name to join the United States Army.
Yeah, I think that's so funny, and I can't figure out why. I mean, well, he wasn't a citizen, but then again, they didn't make it clear, was the person that he used the name, was he a citizen?
I'm not sure about
yeah,
that.
they didn't say. So we really don't know why he did it.
That is one of those, sometimes, in each show there's always a, it seems they cut something out and didn't fully explain the situation, and I think that is one of the, I feel like so why did he join the Army under a fake name? Because if I remember correctly, at the time he joined, you didn't have to be a citizen to join.
See, I was wondering that too. Yeah, I was wondering that.
Be a citizen when if I remember correctly, and I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody will point this out to me very quickly. I love everybody, and I actually like being corrected. So feel free if I got this wrong to send me an email.
That's how we learn.
That's right. How we learn, and how everybody learns. But if I remember correctly, the time period he joined, you didn't have to be a citizen to be in the United States Army, and you would be a citizen when you were honorably discharged.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if that was true,
so
why
is he hiding?
Yeah.
I got the feeling that whole storyline was like they didn't have time to really research it out, or they just couldn't figure out what they wanted to figure out, so they told what they could. But I really felt I left hanging.
Yeah.
I wanted to know more about that.
Yeah, they said that they thought that they had known each other, and my thought was he trying to protect the other man somehow by making a record that showed he'd left? I don't know.
But then the fact that he came back and corrected the record.
Yes.
Well, if you want your pension.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
exactly.
true. And the real guy's in jail, then you probably have to do something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A mystery.
A big mystery.
Big mystery.
I don't know. I'm thinking, do I add this to my to-do list or beg somebody out there in YouTube land to fill in the blanks for us? Because I don't know when I would get to it.
No, me either.
Yeah, I would love to talk to one of the researchers that worked on that one to see, okay, spill it. What's going on here? Or what did you not find?
Somebody, please let us know.
Yes.
Let's see here. What else was interesting? Oh, there was the Gloria Steinem, big-time feminist, civil rights activist, right?
Yes.
Right.
Didn't know she had an ancestress who was big in the suffragette movement.
Right. She didn't even know her own mother had written for her college newspaper.
Right.
She didn't even know that. I thought that was so interesting that all those, years of her daughter being a writer and doing all these things, she doesn't say, oh, yeah, by the way, when I was in college.
I think that shows us that it's extremely important to interview our relatives and to try to find things to get them to tell you those things that they don't think to tell you. It's like they know this, but it's like, oh, well, I didn't think you'd want to know that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's like, well, why would you want to know that?
Yes.
And, especially your parents, from their days before they were married, it's like they don't feel like that existed any longer, so why should I tell you about that? My life started when I got married and with your father or with your mother, and so it's very important to try to interrogate them.
Interrogate. Exactly. And I'm just always amazed when I watch these stories, and I think we find it in our own research, is how many things pass down through the generations, traits or just life circumstances. You find that your ancestor had a similar life circumstance that you have. And it's just amazing to watch that come down through the generations.
We've seen this several times this season, too, that they've their ancestors had that similar trait or a similar job or a similar something that the person that they were doing.
Absolutely. And it touched me, too, when they were talking about her father's, Gloria Steinem's father's car accident. And they showed her that telegram, and she had never seen the telegram. I mean, to me, that's an important part of her story, and it's, that she had never seen. But when he told her to turn the page, she said, "That's a page I'm never going to be able to turn." I'm like, oh.
Oh, I know. It got me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she asked, she said, "Well, who was that sent to?" And he said, "To you."
You.
And she's like, "Oh, well, I thought, how do you not know that?" But she's 80, so maybe,
Well, but her mother probably just never showed it to her.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Because he died when she was rather young, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember correctly.
I think she was 10.
She said he was 10 when he left, but I don't really think they said how long after that that he died in the car wreck. But it sounded like she was young, still young at the
so
time.
it probably came to her mother, and she just never shared it with her. Which, sometimes parents try to protect their children in well-meaning ways.
But how did the show get it?
That's that was my question.
She said, "Where did you get this?"
Yeah.
Was that what the comment she made about that, or someone made a comment about where did you get this?
I think she did.
Because
it means somebody, some relative had to have had it.
But she's 80, so who would that have been?
Let's think about when someone dies. Does Gloria have any siblings?
Yeah,
she was the youngest of 2, right?
Maybe, yeah.
So if she was off being a itchy feet wandering person when her mother died, her sister probably went in and cleaned out the house.
Could be, yeah.
Kept everything, and then items, paperwork, stuff. I don't know if her sister's still alive, but if her sister isn't, that information could have been passed down to her children, in a trunk of papers. God knows where they found it, but that's kind of my guess, because she said until she was 50 she lived out of cardboard boxes. So
yeah, amazing. She called her father a gypsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the way that he traveled and lived, and she took on those traits, I think.
Right.
That's right. It's another one of those trait things.
Yeah, yeah.
So overall, I thought the episode was pretty good. We had a nice variety. I like to see the information from Mexico whenever we get information from other countries a bit of that history.
Oh, I do too.
And the picture from Hobbs, New Mexico for Neil, I swear it still looks the same today.
Yes. That's very true. And, those things kind of help you, even if it's not a picture of your ancestor, it just helps you understand. They have the picture of the migrant workers living in out of that tent, and it wasn't her ancestors, but she could kind of get a glimpse of what their lives were like, and she even said, she was very brave. My ancestor was very brave because she had to live like that, and she even had a baby. She had babies in that, so she was a strong woman. So those kind of things really help. And a lot of people go, "Oh, well, my ancestor wasn't involved in that picture." Well, that doesn't matter. That just kind of gives you a glimpse of how they lived.
Yeah, I don't understand. I can sort of see people's point of view when they say, well, it's not a picture of my ancestor, I don't want to use it, or it's but to me, if they were there, if it's something they participated in, if it's something it'll at least give you an understanding and an appreciation of what it was like. It may not be exactly right, but it'll at least give you an understanding of the time, the circumstance, the place, that type of thing.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. So do you ladies have any last thoughts or anything you don't think that we covered tonight? I don't think that there were any, besides the military records, there weren't a lot of records shown this time. Census records.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
But it was picture heavy. There were several from the Mexican Civil War
Right.
and Sandra's ancestors in uniform, which are always
Yes.
very
Always
interesting.
nice. Yeah.
I found it funny that she talked about, was it her grandfather that was the coal
Yes.
shoveler, and she said,
On the
"This from a
show.
man.
Yeah.
This from a man who doesn't pick up his plate."
That's
Or
right.
something, and I thought, wow. And the other thing was about Gloria, was it Gloria Steinem's father or grandfather, that she said two things he never did was wear a hat
Or have
and
a job.
or have a job.
job.
And I thought those were two very significant things, because at the time period he lived, you wore a hat. I mean, that
Mhm.
was,
That's right.
and not to have a job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was interesting.
Yeah. And then it was also, well, I guess there was one other record that they showed us. It was the Soldiers' Home records, because that's how Gloria found out she had an ancestor who fought in the Civil War for the Navy,
Maybe.
which is something that you don't hear a lot about.
Well, even she said, I thought it was a land war.
Unless you live in South Carolina and know about the Hunley. That's
Right.
that would be the only,
Oh, come on,
I
I'm
guess
in
we'll-
Virginia, so we go
you
to
know.
Hampton Roads. It's the,
That's
it's
right.
the,
Absolutely.
the Monitor and the Merrimack battle right there.
Absolutely. Well, the other records they use, well, they were using the newspaper, in the Mexico newspapers for Sandra, because she found out that she had ancestors that were playwrights. He was a playwright, and he performed in plays.
That's right.
And she had said something about you're born knowing you're a writer before you can even learn to write. And I thought that
Before
was
you can hold a
interesting.
pencil, she said.
Before you can hold a
a
pencil, absolutely. Before
Yeah.
you can, and so she felt that came down through that ancestor. And then they did the DNA with her for the.
They did a special DNA.
Special DNA. I'm like, what kind of DNA? Tell us, So they did that special one, and then she's got Mayan ancestry, which I thought was really neat. So.
Yes, the doctor that they had on, he is the what is he? I'm trying to say he's the lead, the main person. But it's not coming out right. The technical word on the cutting edge of research. There you go. He's the man who's doing all the research for Native American, Northern and Southern, Central American DNA haplogroups, and he's doing all of those studies. So I wasn't surprised to see him on there. If you're in the DNA world, you'd recognize his name, which has now escaped me because I need more sleep.
That's all right.
But
well, I knew that would perk up DNA people's ears, because they talked about being new, and her being one of the first ones to and I thought, oh boy, this is going to perk some people up that may not know.
Right. And it's I've seen some other results in some other articles, and it's very interesting to see how they can, because unfortunately I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the algorithms and information he's come up with has not been totally integrated into any of the mainstream DNA companies yet. So to get the really accurate, besides you have North American or South American, to get the accurate breakdowns, you actually have to go through his lab.
So am I correct in saying that they can pinpoint tribes with that? Is that, or just North and South America based? I mean, are they able to say
for like your ancestry, family tree, and then?
Well, I mean, for his test, is that
for
what
his
the goal
test,
is?
Yeah, for his test, it's kind of like, how we can get, for Europe, you can get breakdowns almost by, the various regions, and sometimes like Ashkenazi or, the central, I just can't speak tonight. But you know what I mean, right?
I know what you mean. Regions.
Those colored
the different
blob
regions. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We're reading your hands just fine.
My husband offered me wine with dinner, and I didn't take it. Maybe I should have. Anyway, but with his test that they're able to break down, because there are still isolated populations of some of those groups, they can verify that you have those DNA strains.
Okay.
DNA segments.
That's cool.
Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, was there one or two of the guests that had an ancestor that was in a mental type
Sandra,
hospital.
it was the playwright.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, and also Gloria Steinem's.
I thought there was two.
Yeah, she had one that was there for a while, and she talks about.
Okay.
We don't talk about those stories, and
Yes.
yeah.
Those always intrigue me because I have a story in my family that I have researched. My great grandmother was put in a insane asylum by her husband.
Oh, wow.
She only had 14 children. My grandmother was the youngest of 14, so no wonder she was in an insane asylum. But my grandmother told me the story before she passed away, that he went to court, had her declared insane because he wanted to be with another woman.
Oh my gosh.
This was in the 30s.
Wow.
So at that time, the male had all the power, and I have the court records and everything, and my grandmother remembers the day that they came to get her, and they drug her out of the house and took her away. She was in that facility for 15 years, and they deemed her cured, and she got out. And I have a piece of paper that she carried in her wallet for the rest of her life. It was her discharge paper.
Oh my goodness.
And so I asked my grandmother, because she had siblings, they were all married and had kids. I said, why didn't someone do something?
Yes.
And they said, because father, it's like the father is the one in charge.
Wow.
And because when I hear stories like that, it always makes me listen, because I have stories like that.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. That's one of those things that boggles my mind.
And you could also.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, they could put people in those institutions for the dummest reasons.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Dumb reasons! Things that we'd all be in one today.
Yes. Definitely.
I read down those lists and I go, check.
It's all kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But that's fine. We've all learned to deal with our crazy.
Right.
Nowadays, you have to be to get through this life and world, and
That's true.
I'm telling you.
Oh, ladies, we've been on for almost a half an hour, if you can believe it, so our time's almost up. But is there anything that you don't think we've covered? I think we've covered a lot.
I think we have two.
Well, then, fantastic.
Good.
So thank you again for joining us and joining me. It looked like Terry and Jen would not be making it tonight, but that's fine. We can forgive them on occasion.
We can. Yeah.
So next week's Chit Chat, which will be the second to the end, so there's only 2 more episodes left. 2. Next week's Chit Chat will be on Azar, and I am so sorry. I am going to butcher both of these names, but Azar Nafisi, who is an Iranian writer and professor of English literature, as well, who also has some New York Times bestsellers out, and then Lydia Bastianich. It's Italian, so I'm not Italian, but she's an Emmy Award-winning television host, best-selling cookbook author, and a restaurateur. So another short episode with only 2 people on it, so I'm hoping that means we're going to have a lot more in-depth, because the last 2-person episode went really in-depth with their research. So it should be interesting.
It will be.
Sounds great.
All right, well, ladies, thank you again. I really appreciate it. And for everyone out there in YouTube land, remember, we would love to hear from you. Drop us a line in the comments below. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or just send us an old-fashioned email at editor@theinDepthGenealogist.com. And on that note, I hope you all have a great day and have fun going in-depth with all of your ancestors. Bye.
Bye.